Welcome to lesson 6 and 7. We're going to go over three concepts in lesson 6. And in lesson 7, we're going to look at in class, it is logic problems. And I think it'll be easier if you do those in person. But lesson 6, we're going to have three concepts. The first one's going to deal with fractions and kind of making equations look a little more simple. Now, if you remember back with fractions, there's only two options that you have with fractions. Back in elementary, we got common denominators, and you still have to do that quite a bit today. Or you can eliminate the denominator, and that's always preferable, so then you have to deal with the denominator. And why would you do that every time? Well, you can only do that if you have an equal sign. And because we do have an equal sign, we will go for the easier route, eliminating the denominator. Now, the way you eliminate the denominator is you're going to multiply everything times the common denominator. And the common denominator here is going to be 21x plus 2. So we're going to multiply everything times 21x plus 2. When we do that, the 7 will go here. We'll have a 3 left over. The x plus 2 will cancel there. The 3 and the 21, you'll have a 7 left over. Now we've got to distribute our numbers that are left. So we have 3 times x times 4, which is going to be 12x. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. Plus 21 times 3 is going to be 63 equals 5 times 7 times x is 35x. 5 times 7 times 2 is 70. Now we're going to isolate the variable and simplify to solve. We're going to subtract 12x from both sides. And then we're going to subtract 70 from both sides. When we subtract 70 from both sides, we're going to get negative 7 and 24. Negative 7 and 24 is 17. So we have 17 left over. And then right here, we have 23x left over. Divide by 23. Divide by 23. 17 over 23 equals x. Not too difficult of a problem. Now, for most of you, when you look at this next problem, the second type is they're going to give you an x and a y, two equations. You're going to solve, substitution, elimination, graphing, whatever. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Of course, we've been talking about system of equations using the button in your calculator. And you might do that just right off the bat using the button in your calculator. Or you can solve it by hand. Either way, it's not too bad. So we're going to use the concept on the top equation that we just went over to eliminate the denominator because we have an equal sign in fractions. And then on the bottom, we're just going to move the decimal point the same amount on each one. The first equation here, when we eliminate the denominator, we have 3 over 7x plus 2 over 7 y. I'm sorry, 2 over 5. That's 2 over 5. I wrote that problem down wrong. So 3 over 7x plus 2 over 5y equals 11. Now, what you're going to do here in order to solve for this is you're going to multiply everything times what would be the common denominator. And what that will do is it will eliminate the denominator. So you're going to multiply everything times 35. And that didn't look good with that squiggly line there. So 35 and 7, you have 5 left over. 5 and 35, you have 7 left over. And so now we'll just distribute everything. 5 times 3 is 15x, and we have plus 14y equals, and then 11 times 35 is going to be, I believe, 385. When you multiply it out, let's see if they did that. That is exactly what they got. Now we just move the decimal point. We're going to move it twice. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Move it twice here, we have 3x. Move it twice here, we have minus 20y equals negative 37. Now, from this point, you guys know how to solve for this. What I encourage you to use is system of equations in your calculator from this point or this point in order to solve for these. That way you get it done faster. The second concept has to do with solving for radicals in equations. Whenever you have a radical in equation, how do you solve for it? What you're going to do is you're going to isolate the radical to one side. We have the negative 2 that is right here in the way. We're going to bring it to the other side. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. And when we do that, we get the cubed root of x minus 5 by itself on one side of the equation. We have 4 on the other side of the equation. In order to get rid of the radical, we're going to cube both sides. Remember, you can do the same thing to both sides and manipulate the equation. When you cube the cube root, you have just what's left inside left over. And then over here, you get the cubed root of 4, which is going to be 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is going to be 64, I believe, is what the cube root of 16 is going to be. Double check the math there. It is 64. So now we add 5 to both sides, and x equals 69. And you can plug it back in order to solve for that. We're going to look at one more type. This one, definitely an easy one. The next one is what you're going to do more often. Here are the more common ones that you're going to get where you have two radicals in an equation, but you're still going to go about it the same way. But what you're going to do is you're going to isolate the biggest radical first, square it, and then we'll get the smaller radical in the end. So we're going to, and these are s's, BT dubs. So you bring the root s to the other side, you get negative root s. And then what you're going to do is you're going to square both sides. Now the key is whenever you square this, you don't just square both, you actually have to write it twice and then multiply by doing the distributive property twice. And so over here, when you square this, you simply get s minus 48. And now we have to distribute this twice, so we get 8 times 8 is 64. We're going to get negative 8 root s twice, so we're going to get negative 16 root s. And then negative root s times negative root s is simply going to be s. So now we have s minus 48 here. When we subtract s from both sides, that will eliminate. We're going to bring 64 over here and make it negative. So now we have negative 112 equals negative 16 root s. Divide both sides by negative 16. So now we're going to get root s is going to be a positive number. And then 112 divided by 16 is going to be 7. And now we're going to square both sides to get the variable s by itself, to get that radical off of it. And then when you square both sides, you get 49 equals s. And that is how you solve for that. This is a more common problem of what you guys are going to deal with here. And then we'll move on now to the third concept. The third concept that we're going to look at are systems of 3 linear equations. And that's what we have here, are 3 linear equations. You're going to be solving for x, y, and z. This is a very simple problem. Then the second example we're going to look at is going to be, once again, what you're going to look at more often. What you will do, your strategy with these, is always to take one of the equations, plug it into the other two, and then it'll take it from 3 letters or variables down to 2 letters or variables, and you will be able to use your system of equations program on your calculator. So we have to do one step, and then you can use that. So what we'll do is we'll isolate the variable x. So we'll get x equals, we'll bring this 2y to the other side, and it becomes positive, it was negative. So this is actually what we're going to plug into these other 2 equations here. We plug x in for x here, 2y. So you put 2y in place of x here. So you get 4y. 4y plus 2y here is 6y minus z equals 14. That's what that equation looks like with 2y in place of x here. Same thing in place of x here, we're going to put 2y. And that'll be 6y plus 3y is going to be 9y plus z equals 16. Now from this point you can plug it into your calculator, or you can see that this is a really easy problem. They've really set it up for you. The z's automatically cancel, which makes it really nice. And so we have 15y equals 30, divided by 15, y equals 2. And that was not too difficult. Right over here, if y is 2, then x has to be 4. And of course you can go right here to the 16 problem when you had 9y plus z is 16. And if y is 2, that's 18. Bring it over here, and it's z equals negative 2. So this was not a very difficult problem, and we will look at another one. Here is the more common problem that you guys are going to get with these system of three linear equations where you got x, y, and z. Same thing though, you're going to pick out one equation to manipulate the other two. Let's pick out the middle one here because we have a negative z, a positive z, and a positive z. So we're going to take the middle one, we'll add it to the top one, get a new equation, then add it to the bottom one, get a new equation, and we'll be down to 2 variables. So when you add the top two equations together, because the z's are already eliminated, there's nothing we have to do to any of these. So we get 3x plus y, those eliminate, equals 4. And all we're doing is adding the equations together. So same thing here, we'll go top and bottom. We get 4x, we're just adding. 2x plus 2x is 4x. Negative y and negative 2y is going to be negative 3y, equals 1 plus 0 is 1. And now I recommend that you put this into your system of equations in order to solve for this. But let's say you wanted to go about doing this by hand. Well, then what we do is multiply the top equation by 3, because when we do that, 3y and negative 3y, the y's will eliminate. So when we do that, I'm going to multiply the top equation by 3. I'm going to get 9x plus 3y equals 4 times 3 is 12. So this will eliminate when you add those together. You get 13x equals 13. So x is 1 when you divide both sides by 13. So x is 1. And of course we can go right back here. If x is 1, 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract 3, y is also 1. So that's not too tough. And then in order to find z, we could go right here. If x is 1 and y is 1, you get 2 minus 2. So z is 1. So they are all 1 in this particular equation. Not too tough. So that's all we're going to look at for lessons 6 and 7. Remember, lesson 7 we're going to look at in class. It's a logic problem, and I think it'd be better if we talked about that one in class. Of course, you can read through it in the book. That's going to be more thinking. I know you guys love that. It's your favorite. Lesson 6, not too tough, just 3 concepts.